I'm Dr. Blair Masters with AcuSmart. I wanted to talk about a technique that is called separate your feelings from your fear. And this technique is one of those that really kind of requires a little bit of introspection and some practice and some work, but it can make a huge difference in your life. It really can. Let me kind of tell you a story. As an adult, I basically have always been known as someone who had a very small bladder. You go on a trip and you know what? I get an hour into the trip and I got to go to the bathroom. And sometimes I get a half hour into the trip and I got to go to the bathroom. Well, you know, that is a little inconvenient. It really is. It can cause some problems, and I was known as the guy who, you know, had to make bathroom stops on a regular basis. And, you know, that's not the most fun. You can see how that might have affected my life. It wasn't a huge deal. I compensated for it, but I really found out why that is when I started applying this technique. And you know, it was funny because I'd have to go to the bathroom, and again, if I'm on a trip and I couldn't do it right then for whatever reason, there's not a bathroom for another 50 miles or whatever, and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna kind of ignore that, and then I'd forget all about it and I wouldn't have to go. Well, that convinced me that this had an emotional component to it, and that led me to kind of investigate this, and this is what I found out. Well, when I was in kindergarten, I had a kindergarten teacher that was really mean, and she would make it known, go to the bathroom on breaks, you don't get to go to the bathroom during class, and if you did have to go to the bathroom during class, she made you feel very bad about it, and then she'd watch, there was a place she could stand where she could watch the bathroom and watch the class at the same time, so you weren't messing up or whatever, you know, whatever it was. Anyway, it was a big deal. You didn't want to have to go to the bathroom during class because, you know, she would make you feel horrible. So I didn't want to go. Well, I held it, and I was in kindergarten. I was like 5 years old, so keep that in mind with this story. And I couldn't hold it any longer, and I ended up going to the bathroom in my pants. Well, if I thought it was bad going to the bathroom during class, it was 10 times worse if you peed your pants during class, obviously. And my 5-year-old brain said, I never, ever want this to happen again in my entire life. And from then on, and I had forgotten all about the issue. I'd forgotten all about that incident and didn't think twice about it as an adult. It didn't like affect me, but my brain remembered that. My subconscious remembered that. So every time I had a feeling, oh, my bladder's starting to fill up just a little bit, I would immediately be like, I gotta go right now. And I didn't realize that my feelings ran right into my fear at that point. It was an automatic connection that my brain had made. So I would go right from like, oh, I feel my bladder's filling up a little bit, to I gotta go right now. I gotta go, I gotta do something about this problem right now. And it was my 5-year-old self saying, if you don't, you might pee your pants again, and that's not good because that's the worst thing that ever happened to you in your entire life. You know, this is my 5-year-old self that's saying this. So pay attention to those things that seem to automatically flow from a feeling into a fear, and you want to separate those. And it does require you to have some conscious thought about the situation. But there's many people out there that have anxiety in crowds, and maybe something happened to them when they're younger, they got lost from their parents, or who knows what it is, but they don't like to go into crowds, and their automatic default is a crowd equals fear or anxiety or whatever it is. And that's not necessarily the case. If you're in a situation where you're comfortable in crowds, a lot of people don't have that, but there are certain people who have that automatic default that goes right into that. Or there's other people who are in a situation where there's an automatic response. I became afraid, so I lashed out. And that fear might be something that you lash out against a boss and get fired. You lash out against your spouse and you have a bad relationship. You lash out against your kids and you teach them, hey, when there's fear, you should lash out, and these are all things that are kind of trouble. So it does require a little bit of thought, but if you have any things that go from a feeling to a fear, this technique really can help that. So first of all, you've got to have some awareness, and breaking that automatic connection. Sometimes if you have awareness, it automatically breaks the connection, and that really helped me with my situation. But feel the feeling, feel that feeling, and understand that there is an automatic connection to the fear, and kind of step back from that and notice the connection. Notice that, because awareness of this is really the first step that you need to take. And one of the things that I did was I would feel like, oh, my bladder's filling up, and I would not go to the bathroom. And, well, there's a bathroom right there. Why don't you just go? Well, that reinforced my, oh, bladder, gotta go, bladder, gotta go. Well, you want to break that. You want to break that automatic connection. And eventually, you have to go if your bladder fills up. So it wasn't a thing that I could get away from forever, like some people can with fears of crowds or whatever it is. But if you're in a situation where your brain has made that connection, then breaking that connection can be helpful. This may sound a little weird, but talk to the part of your body that's made that connection. Talk to your 5-year-old self or whatever it is. It's okay. I really appreciate you making that connection, because at that point it was really, really valuable for me to survive, but I've moved past that and I need to be in a situation where that connection isn't there anymore. Now, like I said, that does seem a little strange. However, really kind of thinking about it in that way can help you break that automatic connection of the feeling moving automatically into the fear. It does sound a little strange, a little out there, but at that point, your 5-year-old self that's in your subconscious still made that connection for a reason they thought was a good idea at the time, and they're not going to let go of that until you kind of talk them out of that. And you're an adult now, so you don't have to have that automatic connection. That it was probably made for some good reason at the time and needs to be broken at that point. Play with this and really kind of get a hold of this and try to break some of those connections if you have any of those. Try to identify those, and hopefully this technique will help you.